Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video, and today I'm going to do an introduction to Excel video. The video was recorded in March 2021 using Excel 365. So Excel is a Microsoft application. It's a spreadsheet application. It's used for adding and storing data and with a view to summarizing that data, performing calculations against that data, or presenting that data in charts, graphs, and summary tables. The application is in it can be broken down into 4 parts. So this very top left here, we've got a quick look, a quick access toolbar. It's got some buttons on here: save as, undo, redo, autosave. This can be customized. You can add your own buttons to this. I've done a separate video on customizing the toolbars. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. The next bit below that is this ribbon area, which it's a series of just lots and lots of buttons that perform different actions. There's a lot of things you can do in Excel. So these buttons are housed in different tabs, and these tabs ought to give you an indication of the type of buttons that are that can be accessed within these tabs. So if you go to view, you can change how it looks, you can zoom and that sort of thing. If we go to data, you can order things, you can actually mess about with the data itself, removing duplicates and such. If we go to draw or insert, this is where you'll insert graphs and charts. And in the home, you've just got some kind of standard formatting options, but we're going to go into that in a little bit. Then you've got this section here, the formula bar. This left-hand bit here shows you the cell that you are currently in. So the cells are referenced almost like a map grid reference here. So I'm in cell G5, and so that's here, it's referenced here. And then this large section here is where you can type the text or the formula that you want to put into the cell that you're currently in. And then this large bit here is the actual data presentation layer, if you like. It's the grid view. It's got rows and columns where you can insert your data into these cells as referenced by those rows and columns. This bit here is called a worksheet, and you can create more worksheets using this little plus here, and it will create you multiple worksheets. You can rename those worksheets. So we might have one that is staff, and you might have one that is customers. So in order to rename it, you just double click on the tab, or you can right click on the tab and you've got an option to rename it, and we'll do sales or something. You can then flick between the tabs here just by selecting them, and if you have one that you actually don't need anymore, so if I click on this, if I right click it, I can delete it and it'll disappear. So let's start by putting some data in, and let us then look at the data entry aspect of it. So for the staff, I'm going to put in a header section here. So I'm going to put in name, age, date of birth, IDA office. So as I'm typing, you'll notice that the text is appearing here. So as I type in here, it's appearing in the formula bar. So when it comes to the text, if I click on here, you can see the text in the formula bar, and I can click in the formula bar and I can amend it, change it. I'm using my left and right arrows here to kind of move about within the text, and then when I'm happy I just press enter. Or if I'm in there and I'm happy, I just press tab and it'll move to the right, or if I'm in there and I press enter, it'll move to the cell below. But then if I don't want that, I can simply click on this and press delete and it will disappear. Now, something to remember, if you've got a lot of text in a cell like that, the text, if I click here, the text is in cell E4, which is referenced here, this cell, this cross section here, E4. The cell is not in F4. even though you can see some text in F4, it's just that the cell is too big for the current size of E4, and so therefore it just carries on. And while there's nothing in the cell to the right, you'll be able to see that text kind of overlap into the next cell, but it isn't in there, it's all in here. As soon as you put some data into here, then you lose, this data gets cut off because there is data here, so it doesn't do the overlap. So if I delete that data using the delete key, you can then see this data now overlapping into the cell to the right. You can resize these columns and rows. There's different ways of doing it. If you hover over it, you'll see that the arrow changes to a left-right arrow. You can grab it there and you can drag it, make it as wide as you want. Sorry why it took so long. Or you can right click and you can choose width, column width, and you can say no, I want it to be 19, and it will size it. Or you can double click it. Now if you double click it, what it will do is it will resize itself to the largest text in that whole column. So if I double click that, it's resized itself to here. But if I go to here and I put even more data in this cell, and I double click this here, it will resize the column to this cell's width, because it resizes itself. So you can double click there and it'll resize, or you can click it and you can drag it. Same with column. Same with rows. So you can see that the arrows change, up and down arrows, when I get within the numbers, and I can make a row bigger, or I can right click and choose row height. Now when I'm saying right click, I'm actually right clicking on the number, the row number, or the column letter. I'm right clicking. So if I right click on this number, I get the option of row height, and I can select a particular height, and there it is. And again, if there was a lot of text in here, I could just double click it and it would automatically make itself big or small depending on the text within its within that row. So as I've just shown you there, you can highlight a cell individually, just use your mouse, or you can go with your up and down arrows, your left and right arrows, and as we're moving about, you can see this reference here changing depending on where our cell is, our selected cell is rather. You can use your mouse and you can drag. So if I click on and keep my finger on my left hand mouse, I can drag and grab a load of cells, or I can click on this J and I'll highlight the whole column, or I can click on the number here and I can highlight a whole row. So there's different ways of highlighting text depending on what you want to do. Now I'm just going to, for this example, I'm going to highlight this whole column. I'm going to right click E and I'm going to choose delete, and that will delete that column. It's gone. Now let's go back to the data entry that we were looking at a second ago. I'm going to highlight all of this and I'm going to make all of that bold, and I'm going to make it underline. So there's options here of changing the fonts. I've also got options, if I highlight that again, maybe I'll just highlight the first two, and I've got an option of background color here. So I'm going to say I'll make it orange, and then I'll highlight that one singly and I'll make it blue, and I'll highlight this one and I'll make it a green. So this is your background color, and then I've got this option here that changes the foreground color, the font color. So I can make changes like that using this font section here. If I want to undo that, well, you've got this option at the top that says automatic, and generally automatic is black font, and generally you say no fill and it'll take you back to the Excel default that where it looks like a white fill, but in fact it isn't a fill at all. But I'll put that green back in. There's other options in this section here, so let us add some data and then we'll start looking at some other options. So we'll add another column here. Put oops, wage. I'll make it bold, I'll make it underlined, I will make it that grey colour, and I'll change the font to be that for whatever reason. So let's just have a name. I want to put in Queen, King, Princess, Prince. That's interesting actually. As I'm typing there, in fact, let me show you a different example of that in a second. Duke. Oh, right. So if I click on here, I can amend it. But if I actually just start typing, I'll overtype what's already there. So Excel is quite it's quite clever. There's lots of time-saving elements to Excel, and I'll show you a couple of examples here. But let's just imagine we've got an office here, and I'm going to put London in as an office, and I'm going to put Middlesbrough in as an office. For some reason, the King and Queen work in different offices. Now I've got a third one here. Maybe I want to put in Manchester. If I put an M, it says, all right, looking at all of the filled in values above, we already have an M. Do you mean Middlesbrough? No, I don't. I mean Manchester. So I'll start typing, and okay, it won't offer me anything else. I'll put Manchester. Maybe the Prince works in London, so I'll put an L. It says, hold on a minute, I've got an L already. Do you mean London? I do, so I can press enter to accept London. Then I'm going to put Manchester in again. So if I put M, it doesn't offer me anything because there's two M's above. But as soon as I put an A, it says, do you mean Manchester? Yes, I do. And then finally I'll put London in. So Excel will look at, Excel will look, as you're typing, it will look at the filled in content above and try and offer you text, automatic text. So which is why when I started typing, when I typed princess and started typing prince, it offered me princess. And you've got to be careful with that, because if I type prince and then if I type princess, it's going to say, do you mean princess, prince? I don't, I'm going to type princess. However, if I did it the other way and I typed princess and then I start typing prince, it's going to say, do you mean princess? It's going to try and force me to put two S's at the end. In order to kind of avoid that, if you press back, as in your delete key or even your space like that, and then just delete it, it'll get rid of that option. So it says, all right, you're doing something new, I'll leave you alone to put in whatever text you want. When it comes to numbers, then numbers are treated differently, and Excel knows the difference between numbers and text. So let's put some numbers in here. I'm just going to put any numbers in here. You'll notice text is left justified and right numbers are right justified. You can change the justification here. You've got some options here where you can change the justification. So I can say, no, I want it to be left justified. But by default, Excel will say that's a number and I'm going to right justify it. So let's put in a date of birth. So I'm just going to put in any old date of births here. So let's put in so if I put in what looks like a date, Excel will say that's a date, isn't it? I'm assuming that's a date, and it's right in this case. I can do the same thing. I can say and Excel will say, is that a date? Now what it's doing here is there's a default in Excel about how dates are formatted. So I gave it a specific format above. So it will keep, oh, hold on, sorry, I put extra dash in there. It will keep that format, but if I didn't give it a format that it recognised, it's going to give it a default format like that. So that isn't kind of accepted by Excel. So it gives it its own default, whatever it thinks. And we can deal with that, we can format that in a second. I'm just going to copy that. So What you can also do in Excel is you can copy and paste. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go down here. And when you copy something, it gets a little broken line around it that you can see. While that broken line is there, something has been copied and it's ready to be pasted. So I'm going to just press Enter to paste it, or I could do Control V. So Control V, paste it. If I press Enter, what that does is it pastes it, but it forgets about it. So you'll notice here I've got the paste active here. When I press Enter, the paste is not active anymore, and that copy is no longer in the clipboard. It's no longer in memory. I can't do anything with it. It's gone. So Control C is copy. Control C is copy. Control V is paste, like in any application. But you do Control V, and it will remember that it's got something to paste. But as soon as you press Enter, it forgets about it. It pastes it, and then it forgets about it. So it's worth kind of remembering, because it doesn't work like that in other applications. Let us now then let's talk about formatting a bit more. So I've looked at changing the background colour and the fore colour and making things bold and whatever else. So in each of these tabs, we've got all of these buttons, and in most cases these buttons are held within their own section. So we've got this font section, we've got this alignment section, number, styles, as you can see. In some cases, these sections have a little button at the bottom right, and you can press it and it'll bring up a little window which gives you more options. So I have options here then of changing the font, which I already have here. I can add underline, bold or italic, but in here I can put strike through. I can change it to super and subscript. There's just that little bit more options, and then there's more options to do with fills and outlines. Clicking on these little tabs will give you these options and more besides. So it's worth investigating and clicking on these things, and it'll take you to these extra options. So what I want to do is I want to format these dates so they all look the same. So I'm going to highlight them all using my left click and drag. I'm going to click in here. I'll choose a date format, and I'll choose that. Now all of our dates look the same, they're uniform. Now there is another way of doing that. So let me put in here Excel has given it its own format for that date, but I want it to be this format. So what we've got here in this clipboard option is this little paintbrush, and what that paintbrush does is it takes the format of the cell or whatever you've selected. So if I click on this paintbrush, I need to undo that, so I'm going to press escape. If I click on this paintbrush, it's going to copy the format of this date, and then if I select another cell, it's going to copy the format into that cell, not the date or the text, just the format. So I can copy the format of this cell and I can put it here, and it doesn't change the word in, it just changes it to green with underline and bold. So that's quite a nifty little thing, that little paintbrush. And as I said before, you've got this at the top. I'm just going to undo it using that undo button there, and I'm going to delete that. So let's now put some more numbers in here. Oops. Let's look at some number formatting. So we've got some options up here to format the numbers. So let me just cancel that. As well as dragging to highlight, I can select this one here, and I can press Shift and select the bottom one, little highlight, or I can select this one and hold Shift and use my arrow keys to highlight multiple cells. Then I'm going to click on here, or alternatively I can right click and choose Format Cells, It's the same thing. It'll take me to the same area. And in here, I'm going to choose number, and I can put a separator and maybe give it 2 decimal places. And so you can see how the format has changed. And I'll move that across by double clicking that to make it as big as it needs to be, and that one. Let's quickly now look at a couple of things you can do with regards to mathematical functions. So we've got some ages here. Maybe we want to know the average age. So if I highlight all of those, we want to know the average. Now there is this little toolbar down here. It's a status bar, and what you can do with it is, well, what by default what it does is it offers you some information depending on your selection. So I've selected 6 cells here. It tells me the average of those numbers is 52. It tells me I've selected 6 cells, which is true, and the sum are 312. And if I right click, I can say, actually I don't want to see the average, but I want to see the maximum. And now it will say to me, all right, the maximum is 68. The sum's still 312. So I've got some options here where I can kind of make some changes here. But maybe actually I don't want to highlight it and for it to tell me the average. I want to do it myself. So I can do it in a few different ways possibly. I can do it in maths. So in maths, rather in these cells, you can do maths. So I could say, in order to put a formula in, you need to begin with an equals. So I'm going to say equals, and I can say something like equals 10 times 20. And if you remember earlier on in the video, what I said was here will tell you the formula that's in the cell. If it is a formula, here it'll show you the result. So this cell doesn't contain 200. It contains the formula 10 times 20. And I can change that formula. Let's change that to 25, and now that's 250. But it's a formula. This here, this cell, oh sorry, that's a date, and because there's dates above, and I put a number in here, it's tried to convert it to a date. Forget about that. Let's put it here. This cell here has the number 250 in it. There it is. You can see it's got 250. This cell looks the same, but it's not. It's a calculation. What we can do, not just calculations, kind of any calculations. So we can say equals 9 divided by 3. That cell doesn't contain 3. It contains the calculation 9 divided by 3. But what we can also do is we can say, let's put 10 in there. Let's put 25 in there. Now this here, we can say equals that value times that value, and there's 250. It isn't 250, it is a calculation based on 2 other cells. So this reference thing that I was showing you here, these grid references are important. J1 times K1, 10 times 25, that's the result. So with that in mind, what we can say is equals, we can say equals, I'm just using my arrow key to select a cell, that plus that plus that plus that plus that plus that. Oops, I don't have that extra, that plus at the end. So there we've got all of those added together. Now if I go back into here and I try and create it as a mathematical formula, divided by the amount of rows, returns us 52, which is the average of these 6 cells above. So anything you can do kind of mathematically, you can do in Excel. But there's always other ways of doing it in Excel. Excel is quite a clever thing. So it has something called functions. So functions and formulas are created in the same way as in they begin with an equals. What I want to know is the average of those numbers. If I start typing average, it brings up these options here, and one of them is average. So I'm going to select average, and then I'm going to highlight all of my cells, and then I'm going to press enter. That is a function that says, give me a load of numbers and I'll tell you the average. And there's lots and lots of functions in Excel. I'm just going to show you another one here. So if we say equals sum, then we highlight all of the cells above. It sums those cells. Again, that cell doesn't contain 312. It contains this formula, this function, the result of it, 312. Now we've got these other tabs. So what you generally have is you'd have your staff here, then you'd come into here and you'd have your customers in here, then you'd come into here and you'd have more headers and all your sales. You'd have as many tabs as you want then. The beauty is that what you might want to do here is for your let me think about this. Let's create another tab. Just thinking off the cuff here a little bit. So I'm going to call this bonus. So we want to give the staff a bonus. So rather than writing our staff names again, so I'm going to put name at the top here. I don't want to have to write everybody's name every time. So what I can do is I can say equals, and then I can go to the staff tab and I can select that A2. Let me just make that bold and underlined. Now I've just used Control B and Control U, which are standard things in Microsoft applications. So what this has done here is it says equals. I'm in cell A2 on my bonus sheet. This here doesn't say Queen, it says whatever's in A2 in my staff sheet. And then down here I can do the same thing. Equals, go to staff, King, press enter, equals, go to staff. Now there are easier ways of doing this as well, which I've talked about in other videos. I'm not going to go through that just now, but the point of this is that instead of us reusing the same data, we are taking the data from another cell, so that if for whatever reason this person changed their name, and let's just, I don't know, I'll just put an S on the end. They've changed the name there, we can see it. When we go to here, it's automatically changed here because this doesn't say Queens, it says whatever's in that cell. And then in here, in this bonus tab, you can say, but you can say maybe year, and you can say bonus, and then let's just format the painter of that, drag it across here. So it means that you don't have to worry about what's in this cell anymore, and you can just start putting your years and bonuses in these cells here. And then format that. We can click on this button here to format it, or we click on here like we did before. Take away the decimals maybe. Yeah, I think that's the end of this video. If you have any comments, please add the comments to this video. Any suggestions? If you liked it, please do the thumbs up. I hope you found this video helpful. See you next time.